Lawyer Reacts. I'm a board-certified criminal defense lawyer where I try actual cases, and I'm here to comment and give you a little bit of an update on the Melly case. Now, as you may know, Melly is sitting in jail in Florida, charged with double homicide, first-degree murder, and he's looking at the death penalty. He is charged with the death of Anthony Williams and Christopher Thomas Jr. Now, there's a lot of interesting things going on in this case. And let's talk about what the government doesn't have and what the government does have. The government in this case doesn't have a weapon. The government doesn't have any eyewitnesses that we know of yet. And so it's going to be a circumstantial case. They'll have cell phone tower records. They'll have some ballistics. They'll have forensics on the vehicle and other evidence that they have collected. Now, one of the pieces of evidence in this case is going to be a supposed confession by Melly. Melly had on his cell phone a recording that was recorded 1 month to the day after this murder happened. Now, just to give you a little bit of an update or a refresher as to what this case was about, Melly and three other guys were in a car. And they were driving somewhere near the Florida Everglades, and two of the people in the car were shot. And then Ynw Melly, or a.k.a. Jamel Demons, and Cortland Henry, a.k.a. Ynw Bortland. Bortland was driving. Melly was in the rear left passenger seat, and the two others were in the other seats in the car. And at about 4 a.m, the two men that were shot were brought to the ER by Melly and by Bortland. Now, they tried to say that the car was shot up and that it was a drive-by, that they were the victims of a drive-by. The police found about 40 shell casings outside the vehicle. I don't know if it was quite 40, but they were 40 caliber, and the car was all shot up. The fatal shot to one of us in the back of the head, and there was a direct line from the back window through the seat and into his head. So let's talk about some of the evidence that they have. There's evidence that of a confession. Now, what is a confession? Confession is used in court, but there's a rule called the admission of a party opponent. Generally, out-of-court statements are not admissible. They're called hearsay. However, when you have the admission of a party opponent and you have the state versus Melly, Melly would be the party opponent, that statement comes in. Let's say you're just suing Joe Blow, and anything Joe Blow said would come into evidence. So any prior words that Melly would say come into evidence, as long as it's relevant. No one has seen exactly what's on this video, but in a court document, the government gave a proffer as to what this evidence was. And what is said on the video is, there's no regrets for this shit that I did for that fella to die. Both of them never say when. Now, that doesn't give us much context. And I suspect there is more context on the video. So his statement comes in, and if the jury believes that's connected to the homicide, that's going to be a problem for Melly. Now, there aren't any witnesses that we know of. However, his co-defendant was let out on $75,000 bail. I would be absolutely shocked if we got to trial, because I think it's going to trial next month. If we got to trial and his co-defendant didn't testify, I would be shocked if he didn't testify. In a case like this, when the stakes are this high, people tend to fold. But we'll see what happens. There is no DNA in this case. But at the same time, I don't think DNA is really an issue. It's because there's no question that Melly was in the car. They brought these two guys to the hospital. So there's no question that they were there. And they say they were there. So you don't really need the DNA. But it would be nice to have it from the prosecution standpoint, because you could show where each person was in the vehicle. So that's going to be a little bit of a challenge for the prosecution. There's an issue about motive. You don't need motive to prove a murder case, but it does kind of help. It puts things into context. It explains where things are at. And in this case, there is a little bit of a, Melly and his one of the guys they were best friends. They were absolutely best friends. However, it's unclear as to whether or not one of them had threatened his mother. And if he had threatened his mother, and that comes in as motive, that would be something. But without it, people don't just do things just for the sake of doing them. All I can say is maybe somebody got hair up their ass and decided to, shoot accidentally, or maybe there was something else going on. Who knows? And who knows if he even did shoot? If this was a drive-by, it would be it'd be wholly consistent with Melly's story. The other thing is the other piece of evidence that they're going to have the cell phone tower records. Now, what cell phone tower records do is they do two things. One, they establish a timeline and a location. So it triangulates exactly where you were with GPS coordinates within a certain degree of error. And it's going to put Melly, in this kind of remote area. And it seems odd that you would have a drive-by shooting in such a remote location. Ynw Bortland had told a story that may be inconsistent with what the cell phone tower records are. If that's you can't fake those cell phone tower records. They are what they are, and we've talked about that on this channel a little bit. You've got a situation where you've got two co-defendants, and if they're going to be tried together, they can't use Bortland's statement against Ynw Melly. Why not? Because there's USA versus Bruton, which is a case that says you can't admit the hearsay of one against the other. Sure, that would be the statement of Bortland would be admissible in his own trial, but it wouldn't be admissible in Melly's trial. So you have a situation where the cell phone tower records are going to pinpoint where they were, and you've got a situation where they say they bring the other to the hospital. So those are two independent pieces of information that put Melly in the car and his co-defendant. Now, there are going to be experts in this case. There's going to be forensic experts. There's going to be DNA experts, ostensibly with regard to the blood, because they're going to have to show that the DNA, the blood that's in the vehicle, belonged to the decedents. And then you're going to have a criminologist or some type of expert to show where the bullets came from, and they're going to show the trajectory of the bullets, and certainly they're going to show the trajectory of the fatal shots. Here's one of the things that will be interesting, because if it was really a drive-by and not a close-up personal shot, one of the things that happens in a close-up personal shot is you'll see a thing called stippling. Stippling is right around the edge of the wound, and you can tell whether it was a contact wound or if it was in close quarters, like within 4 to 6 inches. If it is close contact, you'll see a definite black marks right around the ring of the injury. Now, if they have that, it wasn't, and I don't know that they have that or don't have that, but if they have that, that will be a death nail to their case, because there's no way you can cause stippling if it's drive-by, because a drive-by is what? It's from far away. You're not going to get stippling from a shot away. It's caused by the fire coming out of